Hey guys, it's Will here, and welcome to the first in our new Tale of Four Gamers series. So, as I mentioned in the introductory video, my plan here is not just to do the battle reports like we did last time, but also every month put out some other videos relating to it, looking at how the armies are growing, maybe talking about the paint schemes, the tactics involved, maybe some of the lore and background behind our armies, and this is going to be the first one of those. And in this one, it's basically going to be an introduction to what armies we're using and some work in progress shots of our first month's models. So without further ado, let's take a look at the first army. So here's what I've got so far for the first month of Tale of Four Gamers. These are the Scythes of the Emperor, and as you can see I've got one intercessor squad that is basically complete. Might go back and weather some of the other guys to try and make them sort of weathered like this guy here, but that will depend on how much time I've got once I've finished. And I've also basically finished this whirlwind at the back there, but I've still got the lieutenant to finish off and the second intercessor squad. Now the idea here was to do an army that was mostly Primaris, but had the option of including some non-Primaris units as well. So I didn't want to do an Ultima founding chapter. Instead I went right back into Imperial history to an army that has been chapter that has been in the fluff since 2nd edition, but really hasn't had a lot in the way of attention in the background, but they've always been there. Now the Scythes of the Emperor are an Ultramarine successor chapter, and they're based pretty near to Ultramar, but they suffered 90% casualties when their homeworld was attacked by High Fleet Kraken and essentially eaten. So yeah, by the end of 7th edition, the Second Tyrannic War, they were down to about 100 Marines left, very little in the way of specialist equipment, and only one spaceship and no homeworld, so they were in a pretty sorry state. But because of their ties to the Ultramarines and their relative proximity, they're an obvious candidate to get really big reinforcements of Primaris Marines. And actually, something from a Black Library novel, not one that I've read, but one that I've seen a bit about on the internet, suggests that Gulliman has now actually said that, yeah, the Primaris Marines are going to be, or at least a large number of Primaris Marines, going to be sent to the Scythes of the Emperor to help rebuild the chapter. So yeah, perfect option. Mostly Primaris stuff, but with a few guys sort of left over from before, and a nice mix of equipment there, so I can go mostly Primaris while still justifying the inclusion of a few other bits and pieces. So as you can see here, it's mostly Primaris with just that whirlwind. Got some plans to include some tactical and scout squads and a few other bits and pieces, but for this army mostly going to be focusing on the Primaris units. So you can see I've gone for the core bases here. These are the Sector Mechanicum bases from GW. I actually got these models second hand without bases, so I needed to come up with a cool basing solution. So I thought rather than just buying a nice big pack of 32mm bases, I'd get the cool sort of custom bases from GW instead, make the army look something a bit special. And really done my first attempts at heavy weathering on some of these, like particularly the whirlwind at the back here. I've made an effort to go for the really weathered look, so that's my first attempt. Hopefully I'll be able to do some more as I do the army. But yeah, that's what I've got so far, hoping to get all this finished in time for the first game in a few weeks' time. Anyway, let's take a look at what the other lads have been up to. Next up, we've got these Tyranids, and these belong to Adam. Now, unfortunately, I've only got still pics of the other armies at the moment, but they've got some quite good quality stills for me to show you, so we'll go through those. So yeah, like I said, these are Adam's Tyranids, and this is just a fraction of the army he's going to be using. At 400 points, you get a lot of Tyranids. So you can see he's got some Gene Stealers and some Hormagaunts there. Not at all surprised he went for Gene Stealers. They are one of the most improved units in the game, I think, having played against Sam's Nids a few times. So it'd be cool to see how they get on the table. As you can see, he's gone for this rather cool blue colour scheme, which I think is going to contrast nicely once it's down on the table with these much darker brown bases he's doing, sort of the cold light blue contrasting with the dark brown. And although he's got sort of mostly a horde of smaller bugs, he has got this boy leading the army, his Flying Hive Tyrant. As you can see, still very much work in progress at this point, but I'm sure that'll be ready to go for our first game, and that is going to be a serious threat. I'm not sure if any of the rest of us are going to have something that can deal with that, but that remains to be seen. And as you can see here, he's got a lot of stuff planned for this army. I think this is going to be a real horde of bugs, which really suits how Tyranids are always meant to be in the fluff, and they finally work like that in the game now with all the points reductions they've got. You can really field a big horde and still have the points left over for your big bad monsters. And speaking of armies that use quantity over quality with their infantry, we have Sam's Imperial Guard. Now, interesting story here. Sam was originally planning to do Necrons for this, but he painted over 1,000 points of Necrons in about a week before the rest of us had even worked out what we were doing. So yeah, he decided, okay, Necrons will be a side project, and he's going to do a different army. So he's gone for Imperial Guard, or Astra Militarum, but these are far from your traditional loyalist Imperial Guard. These are meant to be an addition to his existing Genestealer cult army. So as you can see from some of these pictures, he's used a lot of Genestealer cultist components, like the Neophyte kit and the upgrade sprue, to try and give them that sort of theme. So although they will play as Imperial Guard, they have been somewhat corrupted by the forces of the hive mind and are going to be out and out Genestealer cultists one day. So yeah, he's also added in these guys. Here's some Tempestus Scions that he had from an old army he attempted to build in the previous edition, but never quite got round to doing. I imagine that's also going to give him the option of taking a Taurox Prime, which will be cool. And he's got some heavy weapons in there as well. These aren't painted yet, as you can see, but the rate Sam paints, there shouldn't be long at all before they're done. And this army is going to be a lot of weight of numbers, I think. He's talking about fielding a battalion in the first 400 points, which means he's got to have 2 HQs and 3 troops choices, and knowing Sam, he'll probably find a way to make that not only impressive, but really strong as well. Without any disrespect to the other guys, I think Sam is probably the most experienced tournament player in here. So yeah, he will be a real danger on the games. So yeah, that's Sam's Imperial Guard. And last, but by no means least, we've got Tom, who will be playing the Thousand Suns. Now this is the only model I've got pictures of from his first 400 points. But what a model it is. This is Azek Araman, and he's done an absolutely gorgeous job on the paint scheme here. Now, from what I hear, the whole army is going to be done to this standard, so that is going to look gorgeous once it's done. But as these things often go, it takes a while to do, so although he's got some rubric Marines, I don't know if he's going to have them all painted for the first month. He's talking about possibly fielding an army that contains no more than 4 models, just Araman, and then 3 Exalted Sorcerers in a Supreme Command detachment. So while I'm sure they're going to look absolutely great, it's certainly going to be a risk on the table. I mean, they've got a lot of psychic power, you know, they can all spam out smite, but very low numbers there, and could find themselves swamped against the likes of the Tyranids and the Imperial Guard. They'll even be outnumbered by the Primaris Marines. But yeah, as you can see, he's got some other things in the pipeline already. He's working on Magnus. I think he was a little disappointed he couldn't take Magnus at 400 points, but that would be just crazy. And yeah, as you can see, Tom is really quite the painter. So that's a brief introduction to the 4 armies that will be taking part in the Tale of 4 Gamers. Hope this has got you guys excited for the first game. Like I said before, it's going to be up in a week or two, depending on how quickly I can edit it. Planning to play it this coming Friday down at 40k Gaming. And yeah, should be good. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for more updates on the armies as they grow, and more information about what we're planning to add, how we're planning to play them, and how we've done some of the painting. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.